My name is Rachel Owens. I am 35 years old. On a Thursday morning in March, I sat in a private consultation room at Northwestern Memorial Hospital in Chicago when my surgeon, Dr. Patricia Hale, placed a report on the table between us and told me that the biopsy results from my surgery 3 weeks earlier had come back with findings that changed the conversation entirely. Dr. Hale was 52, precise, the kind of doctor who looked at you directly when she delivered information because she believed you deserved that. She said, "Rachel, I need you to understand what this means for your treatment going forward." I picked up the report, I read the first page carefully, then I set it down and said, "I understand." She looked at me for a moment, then she said, "You were alone in that recovery room for 6 hours." It was not a question. I said yes. She said, "I want you to know that I stayed." But I'm getting ahead of myself. Before I tell you what that report contained and what happened because of it, take a moment to like this video and subscribe to SoftStormStories. Drop a comment and tell me where you are watching from. I read every single one. Now, let me take you back 4 years to the November evening when my mother called to tell me that my sister's promotion dinner was on the same night as my surgery and that they had decided as a family that Lauren needed them more. I live in a 2-bedroom apartment in Lincoln Square, Chicago. The second bedroom is empty most of the time. I keep a reading chair in the corner of it and a lamp and a small bookshelf with 31 books on it. I know the exact number because I counted them last winter when I was recovering and had nothing but time and the particular clarity that comes from lying still for long stretches. I wake up at 6 a.m. I make tea, not coffee, not anymore since the surgery changed some things about what my body processes easily. I drink it at the kitchen table with the window open if the weather allows, even in early spring when the air still has an edge to it. I am a senior research coordinator at Northwestern's Clinical Oncology Department. I have been in this role for 3 years. I coordinate trials, manage patient data, work with the medical team on protocol compliance. The work is technical and detailed and suits the part of my brain that needs precision. I keep a small silver compass on my desk. It was my grandmother's, used when she taught navigation at a sailing school in Michigan for 15 years. She gave it to me the summer I turned 22 and said, "Always know which direction you're moving." I keep it because it is the most honest object I own. My parents, James and Carol Owens, live in a 4-bedroom house in Naperville, Illinois, 31 miles from my apartment. My father retired from engineering 4 years ago. My mother ran a catering business for 20 years and sold it in 2021. They are not bad people. That is the most precise thing I can say about them. They are people who organized their love around the child who needed the most visible attention, and Lauren had always understood, earlier and more completely than I had, how to need attention in ways that were visible. Lauren was 2 years younger than me and had spent our entire childhood being the louder, brighter, more immediately legible version of whatever the room needed. She was not cruel about it, she simply occupied more space, and our parents had, over 30 years, arranged themselves around that space, like furniture arranges itself around the largest piece in a room. I had learned to be smaller. It was not a conscious decision, it was the shape the house made. When I was 31, I was diagnosed with a uterine fibroid that my gynecologist described as significant. She referred me to a specialist. The specialist recommended surgery, a myomectomy, laparoscopic, outpatient, low risk but not no risk, requiring general anesthesia and a recovery period of 4 to 6 weeks. I scheduled it for the first available date, which was a Thursday in February. I told my parents in November. My mother said she would be there. My father said, of course. Lauren said she would come if she could get away from work. In January, Lauren was promoted to regional director at her company. Her colleagues planned a dinner for the third Thursday of February. The third Thursday of February was the same day as my surgery.
My mother called me on a Tuesday evening, 9 days before the surgery. I was sitting at my kitchen table going over the pre-operative instructions my surgeon had sent. My mother's voice was careful in the way it got careful when she had already made a decision and was looking for a way to deliver it. She said, "Rachel, about Thursday?" I said, "Yes." She said, "Lauren's dinner is that night. Her whole team will be there. She really needs us there. You know how important this is for her." I said, "I know." She said, "You're so strong, Rachel. You've always been so independent. I know you'll be fine." I said, "I know." She said, "You understand, don't you?" I said, "Yes, Mom, I understand."
I understood perfectly. The surgery was scheduled at 7 a.m. I drove myself to Northwestern Memorial Hospital. I parked in the hospital garage on level 3. I checked in at 6:15. A nurse named Angela took my vitals and asked if I had someone waiting for me. I said no. She wrote something on her clipboard and said, "I'll check on you in recovery." She did, 3 times. The surgery took 4 hours. I awoke in recovery at 12:47 p.m. The room was pale and quiet and smelled like antiseptic and something faintly floral from the hand lotion Angela was wearing. I lay there for 6 hours. I ate crackers, I drank gingerade. I watched the light change in the small window above the door from white afternoon to gray early evening. My phone had 17 notifications. 12 were from Lauren, updates about the dinner venue, photographs of her outfit, and a video of the toast her manager gave. My parents had sent one text each. "Mom, hope surgery went well. Lauren looked beautiful tonight. Dad, thinking of you. Feel better soon." I turned my phone face down on the bedside tray. I looked at the ceiling for a while, then I closed my eyes. So I healed, and while I healed, I worked. That is the accurate sequence. Recovery took 5 weeks instead of 3 because there had been a complication during surgery. Minor, managed, not dangerous, but requiring a longer monitored rest period. Dr. Hale called me personally on day 3 to explain. She called again on day 10 to check in. She was the most consistent presence in those 5 weeks. I returned to Northwestern's research department part-time at week 6 and full-time at week 8. In the months that followed, I coordinated 3 clinical trials simultaneously. I earned a commendation from the department chief on protocol compliance on a phase 2 oncology study. I published a co-authored paper on trial recruitment methodology. I did not tell my parents about it. They did not ask. The biopsy report that Dr. Hale gave me in March contained findings that had not been expected from a routine fibroid surgery. The pathology had revealed cellular changes that required monitoring, not cancer, not immediately dangerous, but requiring a structured surveillance protocol and quarterly follow-up appointments for the foreseeable future. Dr. Hale was direct about what this meant. She was also direct about something else. She said, "You should have had someone with you in recovery, for the hours after, but also because you deserved it." I said, "I know." She said, "If you need documentation of your medical situation, for any reason, I can provide it." I looked at her. She looked at me steadily. I said, "I'll let you know." Northwestern's oncology department held an annual research symposium every April. This year, the keynote dinner was at a hotel in River North. Dr. Hale was presenting. She asked me if I would attend and be available to speak briefly about the trial coordination work. My parents had been invited through a charity connection. My father had donated to Northwestern's foundation the previous year and was on their donor event list. Lauren was his guest. I almost declined. I called my friend and colleague Marisol, who had known me since my first year at Northwestern and who had brought me soup on day 4 of my recovery without being asked. I told her my parents would be at the dinner. She said, "Go, let them see where you landed." I thought about the compass on my desk. I could have said no. That's exactly why I went. I wore a simple charcoal dress, knee-length, long sleeves, small pearl earrings. The silver compass went into my evening bag. I dressed in 11 minutes and did not check the mirror more than once. I ordered a car at 6:30. I was calm in the way I was calm in recovery, not because nothing was happening inside me, but because I had learned that stillness was a more useful response than its alternative. The hotel ballroom was arranged for 60 guests, round tables, white linens, the particular hum of a room full of people whose professional lives had given them confidence they wore easily. I spotted my parents near the bar before they saw me, my father in his dark suit, my mother in a burgundy wrap dress. Lauren was beside them in a cream blazer holding a glass of white wine, telling a story that my father laughed. She looked well. She always looked well in rooms like this. A research fellow I knew slightly stopped me near the entrance. She said, "You're Rachel Owens, right? From the Harmon trial?" I said yes. She said, "Your recruitment methodology is being cited in 3 papers right now. Did you know that?" I said I didn't. She said, "You should." She moved on. I took a glass of water from a passing tray and found my table. Lauren spotted me at 7:15. She came across the room in the cream blazer with a smile that was genuinely warm and entirely uncomplicated. Lauren had never been malicious, which is the part that made everything harder to name. She said, "Rachel, I didn't know you'd be here." I said, "Dr. Hale invited me." She said, "How are you feeling? You look great. Mom said you bounced back so fast." I said, "I had good care." She looked at me. Something shifted in her expression. Briefly, just briefly, she said, "I know we weren't there. I know that wasn't." I said, "Lauren, not tonight." She nodded. She moved away. My mother found me before the main course. She sat in the empty chair beside me and said in a low voice, "I'm glad you're well, Rachel, truly." I said, "Thank you, Mom." She said, "We thought about you that whole day." I said, "I know." She said, "Lauren was so nervous that night. She needed us." I looked at my mother. I said, "I was in surgery, Mom." She looked at her hands. She said, "You've always been the strong one." I picked up my water glass. I drank from it. I set it down. I said nothing else. Dr. Hale stood up at the dessert course. She was in a navy dress, reading glasses around her neck, carrying the particular authority of someone who has delivered difficult news to enough people to know that clarity is a form of kindness. She spoke about the department's research, about the trials, about the team's work. Then she turned to me. She said, "I want to recognize Rachel Owens, our senior research coordinator who managed 3 concurrent trials this year while completing her own post-surgical recovery." She paused. The room was quiet. "I want to recognize Rachel Owens, our senior research coordinator who managed 3 concurrent trials this year while completing her own post-surgical recovery." She paused. The room was quiet. Rachel coordinated 847 patient touchpoints across those trials with 0 protocol deviations. She did this in the 8 months following a surgery she attended alone and recovered from alone, while continuing to show up for work and for every patient in every trial she managed. She looked at the room. I want to be specific about what that means, because this department asks a great deal of the people who work in it, and sometimes we don't say clearly enough, "We see what it costs." She looked at my parents. Not pointedly, just the natural sweep of a room. We see it. The room was completely still. My mother's wine glass had not moved for 45 seconds. My father was looking at the table. Lauren was looking at me. I stood up. I did not raise my voice. I looked at Dr. Hale and then at the room, and then, briefly, at my parents. I said, "I was alone in that recovery room for 6 hours.
I've thought about that a lot since, and what I've decided is that the 6 hours taught me something the surgery didn't. I paused. I already knew which direction I was moving. I just needed to confirm it. I picked up my evening bag. I looked at Dr. Hale. "Thank you, Patricia." She nodded once. I walked to the exit. The room watched me go. My heels made a clean, steady sound on the marble near the door. The elevator opened immediately. The lobby was bright and quiet. Outside, April in Chicago, cold still, but with the first suggestion of something else underneath it. I stood on the pavement for a moment and held the silver compass in my hand inside my bag. I held it until my breathing was even, then I put it back and walked to my car. Marisol called the following morning. She had stayed until the end of the dinner. She told me that after I left, my mother had not spoken for the remainder of the evening. My father had asked Dr. Hale a question about the department, something about research funding, and Dr. Hale had answered briefly and professionally and moved on. Lauren had left early, before the final remarks. She had said she had an early meeting. Marisol said the table where my family had been sitting was the quietest table in the room for the last 40 minutes of the evening.
My father called 2 days later. He left a voicemail. He said he had not realized the surgery was as serious as it was. He said he thought I would understand about Lauren's dinner. He said he was sorry I had been alone. He did not say he would have done it differently. The apology lived inside an explanation rather than beside it. I listened to the voicemail once. I did not call back that day. My mother sent a card the following week. 4 sentences. The last one said, "You have always been stronger than we gave you credit for." I read that sentence 3 times. Then I put the card in the drawer where I keep things I am not yet ready to decide about. Lauren texted on a Sunday morning, just 3 words. "I'm sorry, Rachel." No context, no explanation, just that. I read it. I put my phone down. I made tea. I sat at the kitchen table with the window open. 3 words can be the beginning of something or the whole of something, and I was not yet sure which these were. I am still at Northwestern. The surveillance protocol continues, quarterly appointments, consistent monitoring, all within expected parameters. Dr. Hale is still my physician. Last month she told me the latest results were stable. I said, "Good." She said, "Yes, good." We have learned to speak to each other in that register, factual, warm, earned. I started a peer support group this year for patients navigating medical situations without family support. It meets every second Tuesday in a conference room on the 4th floor of the hospital. 7 people attended the first session, 11 the second. I bring the compass. I don't always take it out, but I like knowing it's there. I still keep it on my desk every day. The morning after the dinner, I picked it up before I opened my laptop, and I held it and thought about a recovery room and 6 hours and a nurse named Angela who checked on me 3 times. Some people show up. They are not always the people you expected. That matters. It changes the compass reading in ways that stay with you. Here is what I know. The people who call you strong are sometimes using your strength as a reason to not show up. They tell themselves you will be fine because they need you to be fine. Because if you're fine, then they don't have to rearrange themselves around you, don't have to choose, don't have to sit in a hospital waiting room instead of a promotion dinner. What they don't understand is that being fine and being okay alone are not the same thing, and the distance between those 2 things is where you find out who you are when nobody's watching. Show up for yourself the way you needed them to show up. That is not a consolation, that is the whole instruction. If this story reminded you that you deserved someone in that waiting room, share it with someone who needs to hear that today. Subscribe to Soft Storm Stories, and I will see you in the next one.